Greetings and salutations, geeks. Welcome to Geeking Off the Page. For those keeping track, this is episode 53. Yes, I said that right, 53. I didn't stutter. Who knew we could get this count this high? Not me. I'm Trevor.
And I'm Mike.
And we're going to be spoiling the shit out of a lot of stuff for you people. So if you don't like spoiler casts, you're in the wrong place. If you do like spoiler casts, keep listening. Keep watching.
Yeah, no mercy, motherfucker.
Because we're about to get into it. All right, Mike, hit it.
Cobra Kai. Let's just go there. I mean, this is the one thing I've been wanting to talk about nonstop for the last 2 weeks. And we did a fair amount of talking around about 5 or 6 episodes last week.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing you've finished the series?
I have indeed finished the series.
So yeah, we can spoil away. And Gavin, too bad. He doesn't listen to the podcast anyway.
Yeah.
But I will still say, I'll let you do the recap because you're good at recaps, but I will still say that Cobra Kai is the greatest reboot of a franchise or next generation or whatever you want to call it, probably since Star Trek Next Generations. I can't think of any other franchise reboot that took the intent of the original, pushed it a generation, was able to bring in new characters, respect the old vibe, the old feel, and continue it on for next generation. And let's not talk about the movies. We'll talk about the TV series.
I'm going to have to give you that one because I honestly can't think of any show that has that, like those sort of prerequisites of starting with the original show, not just doing the same show again, but doing a continuation, new cast, new stories, and still being a quality show. So yeah,
and respecting the old characters, the old vibes. Exactly. That's one thing Star Trek Next Generation had, where Bones was in the first episode doing a tour of the ship as an old man. Spock would show up. Scotty was locked in a transporter loop. Like, all that stuff was there, and they respected it.
Yeah, and so I find with Cobra Kai, they do a lot of callbacks to the original. I mean, so far movies 1, 2, and 3. Here's hoping they get to number 4. But anyways, and they keep some of that 80s vibe to it. Like, I mean, Johnny 100% has not left the 80s. He still is trying to relive his glory days. But just some of I talked about this last week, like when the senseis and instructors from Korea show up, and you have like the woman and the 6 guys, and they're all dressed in black, and the one guy's got an eye patch. You're like, that's pure 80s cheese. Like,
it is.
In the 80s, if you had to have henchmen show up, they would all wear black suits, and one of them had to have an eye patch. It was like a written law. If no one had an eye patch, and you would just go up to randomly to one of the actors, poke them in the eye, and say, "Put this on, make it worth it."
So, and last podcast, I was up north, so I did a solo trip with the dog. I did a couple, extra remote days, and I knew as soon as it was on the 9th, I was like, oh crap, I'm going to be binging this by myself because I know my kids are also going to be binging it. So when I got home, that was one of the things my son said, my oldest son Erickson. He said, "Dad, did you think that the water park was kind of cheesy?" It's like, yeah, I do, but because it was one of the first episode, it's like pizza, you need cheese.
Yeah, you do.
There has to be some cheese on your pizza. Like, that's the way it is. And if the whole series was that, it probably wouldn't be so good. But no, that's just the topping on the meat lover pizza, man.
Yeah, you've got to put it on there. So you need that little sprinkling of the 80s cheese to, especially if you're pulling something. So if they were to do, like, say, a Knight Rider or an Airwolf or A-Team or something like that, a show that was 100% from the 80s, today, if you didn't have any sort of 80s callback, it wouldn't work. So that's why, like, I feel like the Dukes of Hazzard movie, the countless Knight Rider spin-offs and repeats and whatnots, they all failed because they tried to kind of push past what had originally been done and not like kind of semi-acknowledge it, but lose its flavor.
Right. It's like you're trying to try too hard to make it cool and updated, but you're completely missing the things that gave it that flavor, that taste,
100%.
Aura. It's like what we were talking about with other things. There's a certain palette. If you're not using the same palette, it's like Star Wars with the models and kit bashing, and like there's a certain thing that gives it that flavor.
Exactly.
And if you don't have that 80s cheese, it's not Karate Kid. It's not
Yeah.
Cobra Kai.
I mean, and even they the last episode they busted out the crane kick, which
In the greatest possible way.
yeah, I mean it was nice seeing the crane kick coming out.
From
So,
Daniel.
oh yeah, from Daniel.
Because the last time we saw it, I think was Miguel, wasn't it?
Yeah, Miguel did it kind of like
As the first move, as like a nephew to
yeah.
Daniel in the tournament.
Yeah. So yeah. So this. So I think we got up to like episode 5. At least I got up to episode 5 the last time we talked.
Yeah, and I gave you a quick Kevin
Yeah.
Smith tear sob story at the end of episode 6 that I just had
Yeah.
to say. I
And
rewatched that episode to see if I was just being sensitive in the moment, and I teared up a second time. It's like, damn, that episode was so good.
yeah, 6 is where they kind of like everyone's like, all right, we're all gonna get together. The three senseis, Chosen, Johnny, and Daniel are like, all right, we're training you right. Each of us are giving you a different aspect of the training that you need to fight Silver.
And this is the first time they've all been 100% locked on, like
Yeah.
on the same mission. The fact that Johnny and Daniel didn't have any conflict this whole season.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas last season, I got all emotional with the Air Tonight song at the end. It's like, oh, they're uniting forces. And then right away, it's like they fragment and splinter and start fighting each other. But this season, the whole way through, they're united. It's like Ken and Ryu.
I think what kept them united was Chosen. Chosen was the perfect foil because he was
badass enough
with Americanisms that he could throw in the odd joke, but he could also be very stoic. They'd throw a joke at him, he'd be very stoic, and they'd be like, "Oh shit, that didn't fly," and then he'd like smile or something like, "Haha, got you. Yes, it did work." And by doing that, and also he didn't take any of Johnny's shit, and he didn't take any of Daniel's shit either. He was like,
Johnny saw that Miyagi-Do can be badass.
Like, yeah.
There was some of that. And the fact that it's the two villains teaming up, which was amazing. And we'll get to Mike fucking Barnes later. But.
Yeah. Now, what was kind of nice was the second to last episode. Chosen and Johnny are talking, and Chosen reveals, or no, was it Chosen? No, Chosen and Danny, I think, or Daniel. They were talking about how Chosen is still carrying a torch for Kumiko from the Karate Kid movie, and it's because two of the salesmen, one is dating and one of the other salesman's sister, whatnot, and gives the advice of go for it, like she can forgive you, try, like worst case scenario she's going to say no.
Yeah.
But don't carry a torch and do nothing about it, because you're just going to live a life of regrets. And it was such a nice moment and a nice message in there. And then they have the giant fight. Like the huge fucking fight.
And then he dies, but that's the spoiler.
Well, he doesn't. Don't false spoiler people with shit like that, because we'll talk about it. So anyway, the episode I liked was episode 7, Bad Eggs. This is where Chosen is taking all the Miyagi-Do students and the Eagle Fang students and is like, all right, your regular senseis aren't here today. You've got me. Yeah. And he shows them what true, like, hard training is. And he first starts them all with like, everyone grab an egg. And they're like, what the fuck? What do I grab an egg for? And he's like, you gotta protect your egg. And then he, pulls out various weapons, all like classic Okinawa martial arts weapons, and proceeds to run around and break everyone's eggs in just hilarious fashion. And it's, and then they use that, they like, foreshadowing and payoff. That's the foreshadow for later on. They pay off the whole protect the egg. And it was such a nice way of having basically everyone come together when they realized they had to work as a team to protect the eggs. They couldn't do it solo because, one-on-one versus Chosen, there's not a single student who could stand up to him, not even close.
And the fact it was Daniel's son, it's Anthony, right? He was Anthony. The one who was like, wait a second, I think I have a strategy.
Yeah, and it was
the worst martial artist of the group, but he was like, wait, I think I know what we can do.
Yeah, and it was a nice touching moment that he's starting to realize some value in this, and how something Mr. Miyagi back in the first Karate Kid movie was showing that you know, real world application, or using the real world to help train. So stuff that is feeling unrelated and suddenly actually works. And, just like the wax on, wax off, protect the eggs, teach people to work as a team. It made it so much fun to watch that.
And when he finally delivered the final payoff, he was like, that's something that Cobra Kai will never have.
Yeah.
We might, I forget the exact term, but it's like, they might be a mile wide, but they're an inch deep. We might
Yeah.
be an inch wide, but we're a mile deep.
Yeah.
You guys work together, you can beat them over anything.
Yeah.
And then we get the payoff. And that's one thing this story and this writing does so well, because it's not just kung fu fights and stuff. It's every fight has a message and a meaning, and it builds the characters, it builds the story arcs, and there's a plot going through the whole thing. So
Yeah.
it's cool to see all the cool kicks and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's always something deeper.
It's also, people don't get through a fight unchanged. Whether they win or get their ass kicked, they're a different person by the end of the fight. And this show is, the writing is pushing that, with the characters aren't stagnating before their fight, during the fight, after the fight. They're not the same person from time to time. So they're written differently. So by the aftermath of the fight, their perspective has changed in some way. And I like that, because it's a very forward-thinking writing style, so that your characters don't stagnate, and they don't become like two-dimensional cutouts. They actually have substance. So yeah, and then each episode, and then the big international competition, and the two dojos have to compete against each other to see who can, which dojo gets the chance to compete in this international competition. And spoil it, they both get in.
And that's another thing that the writers do so well with this kind of stuff, is they're not afraid to sideline characters for the benefit of the story.
Yeah.
So whereas Hawk is the champion, you think he's going to be elevated to like the new Karate Kid, and he's completely sidelined for the most. Like, he had his big story arc last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And now he's kind of come to terms. He's got some working out to do, but you realize this isn't about Hawk anymore. It's a little bit about Miguel and Robbie.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely about Daniel and Silver.
Yeah.
But it's about the philosophies of the two dojos, like the modern version of Cobra Kai versus old school Miyagi-Do, and like, how does that work in the real world, especially when you still have Kreese in the shadows manipulating Tori. And like, that's the main story element. So if they have to sideline some characters and put them to secondary for the benefit of the story, they're not afraid to do that, and it makes the story strong.
Is when they had the two dojos fight to see who could compete in this international competition, they didn't say, "Oh, Robbie's going to come in and take it," or "Oh, Miguel's going to come in." They had Hawk come in and as be their champion to.
And
fight.
The fact that the other two boys said, "No, he's the champ," so
yeah,
you do that. It's not like the instructor said it. They're like, "No, like, give him a chance."
Yeah, and it was nice. I mean, it was a nice way of not having him disappear into the background.
Yeah,
by having him be a part of that fight. I mean, yeah,
even though he got taken out by a silver bullet.
Yeah,
which by a little kid.
I'm sorry. That's just. Anyway,
I didn't mind it.
That dumbass.
There's a payoff later.
Anyways, but what was nice in that episode is the whole. I mean, everyone could see that the ref had been paid off by Silver again. Tori could see it. And I like the fact that Daniel and Chosen and Johnny are like, all right, you've got to make each point undeniable.
Yes, that was such a good redemption arc for Samantha.
And she did. She made it so that there was no way if you could say, well, her gi was untied, or it's 9:15 and you can't score a point at 9:15.
I like how the ref kept looking over at Silver every time.
It's like, I gotta award it. I gotta.
It's so great. It's like, you might have paid me off, but
yeah. And the fact that Johnny and one of the community members bond over their love of Rocky, especially Rocky 4.
Yeah,
that was just like, oh my god, Johnny's love of the 80s is
right after a watermelon in the face.
Yeah. So, Yeah, it's and the thing is also at the same time we have the whole relationship struggle with like Sam and Miguel. You know, he tries to make up and she's trying to break up with him, and then when he buys her the octopus thing and she shows up at the party and there he is with a girl on his lap, and you know so yeah, they're having some issues, resolving the relationship, but at the same time we've got adult drama going on as well. We've got like Daniel and his wife are having some issues, and you know chosen naked swimming laps in their pool. These sorts of things happen.
And I don't know if you watch those behind the scene things Netflix put out, but the showrunners were talking about the stuff they were able to do in this series. They said they could take it to these ridiculous levels because they already set up the groundwork. Like if you tried
Yeah.
to do this in Cobra Kai season 1,
No,
it wouldn't work.
Wouldn't work
But
at all.
because they progressively built up the drama, built up the stories, and now you have this completely ridiculous storyline of
Yeah.
Silver trying to create franchises, bringing in goons from Korea, and like
Yeah.
life and death matches.
Like
Chosen showing up
80s
as Psy.
nostalgia shit, bringing in the foreign senseis and all that other stuff.
It was
You
it
couldn't do
was
that.
so good. One
Um,
thing I like about the storytelling too is the way they built up story elements through the whole series, like Chosen with the Psy.
mhm.
That was an ongoing gag for like 9 episodes until Silver pulls out the katana. It's like, oh, I know what Chosen has in his pocket, and sure enough,
He just
shink,
pulls them out.
and then he
They go
does.
to the nightclub and he's got them.
Yeah, I know.
Oh
It's
my
so
god,
good.
buddy.
Like it was just a running gag all season until that moment with the payoff.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I was fist pumping when that scene happened. It's like, oh no way, this is going to be amazing. Another thing with the whole Mike Barnes stealing the party limo, and then the fact that you have like the 3 villains from the 3 Karate Kid movies all together,
Mm-hmm.
all drunk out of their mind, all ready to go trash Silver, and Daniel's the only one with any common sense. Like, dude, we can't just
Yeah.
go to his house. Like, the hell we can. So
You've got a
we're gonna
car
do
right
it.
here. Let's do
Yeah.
it.
So he's
Um,
stranded in the wilderness as the 3 villains
go
combine forces to go after Silver. It's like, what an amazing thing. Like, I could not foresee that coming.
Yeah, yeah. That was, and it was funny. The person who comes to Daniel's rescue, of all people, when he's stranded out in the wilderness, Stingray.
And that was a great phone call from his wife. It's like, oh no, Cobra Kai's at the house.
Yeah,
This is another thing that they set up because Cobra Kai has already invaded their house before and Miyagi-Do.
yeah,
Like this has happened. And also the fact that what's her name? Johnny's new wife,
yeah. Carmen.
Carmen, she's pregnant.
Yes,
And they
yes,
kept cutting away to Cobra or to Karate Kid 3 with Silver kicking the girl in the stomach.
yeah,
And they keep putting her in dangerous situations. Like I thought they were going to lose the baby the entire show.
yeah.
So when they're in the house, Cobra Kai's at the house. It's like, oh no, but it's Stingray. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, Stingray.
I liked so something I really enjoyed was how little they dealt with Kreese, but they just enough to keep him in the story and to keep his connection with Tori going until the last episode. Like, and we saw like a couple of his therapy sessions where he was first he was faux breaking down to see he could tell that the psychiatrist what she needed to hear, and then when she called him on his shit, he was like, "All right, this is how I really feel." And then we see like him dealing with the other prisoners, and now they're calling him Sensei when he like just rocks like what 3 or 4 prisoners. He just takes them out.
And that was a fun thing how they flash between young Kreese. It's like he's the old man getting beaten. It's like, that's not who I am. Comes back as young Kreese and just
Yeah.
wrecks all of them.
Oh yeah. But it was also it was a beautiful setup for the payoff in the last episode with Kreese. Because the episode starts out and Kreese is killed in a prison fight, and we're like, I was sitting here and I'm like, what? uh Maybe he's just injured. And then you see where the blood is, and you're like, no, no, he's not injured. That's not something you walk off. They killed Kreese. And I was like, holy shit. Could you
After they were calling him Sensei and everything else, it's like, wow, I guess the story arc's done for this character.
Yeah.
So they kill off Chosen, they kill off Kreese. It's like you have some serious stakes in the final episode.
Yeah.
And another thing about the good writing, just like the Psy, the Jello joke went from the start all the way to the end.
Yes, they carried it, and they carried it because, so spoiler for people listening who haven't seen Cobra Kai season 5. We talked about Kreese gets attacked in prison, stabbed multiple times with a shiv, laying there.
100% dead.
And at the end, we find out when the doctors are, they have him up on the table in the infirmary, and the guy's like, "Why is it sticky and sweet?" And he's like, "That's Jello," because he had Jello packs hidden inside his shirt. That's what the guy was stabbing. Kreese takes out the 2 guards and the doc and escapes the prison using the psychiatrist's key card. This is, by the way, this is totally plot of an 80s movie, because in real life you would not be able to do this shit. Only in an 80s movie would this work. And manages to buzz himself out and escape the prison, and now he's on the loose. So, yeah, it's something you couldn't do in real life, especially in the modern day. But in an 80s movie, this is to be expected. This is why this is like this big 80s callback, because these ridiculous, ways of getting around the plot. It's pure 80s cheese, and it's so delicious. It's the topping on the pizza we need. So, yeah, that's why at first I was like, holy shit, they killed Kreese. And at the end, I'm like, this is so 80s. It's just awesome.
Yeah, I was so happy. And then when Chosen walks out of the limo, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's just a flesh wound. And then Tanner's like, yeah, all your flesh.
Yeah, he got sliced on the back of the leg and the back and the front. I mean, he's hurting. He's going to have to spend some serious time in the hospital getting stitches. But the fight between Silver and Daniel,
for me, that was the icing on the cake.
Yeah, well, we had the big fight between Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do, as the Miyagi-Do guys are trying to find some footage of Silver to upload to their YouTube to discredit Silver. And at first, the footage they wanted him beating up Stingray doesn't exist. But then Tori's like, go to this time code, and it's Silver admitting he paid off the ref.
Yeah.
And damning him. And he comes in, I love the strutting in. Who cares? Doesn't matter. And it's like, it kind of does.
Kind of does a lot.
And then, and then Daniel shows up, and then, yeah, the fight between Silver and Daniel is nice. And it ends beautifully with the crane kick.
Well, actually, let's go back, to the whole uploading the video, because I thought that was brilliant storytelling, because it did a whole bunch of callbacks. So you look at all the people that are in Miyagi-Do now.
Mm-hmm.
So you got Robbie,
mm-hmm.
who was basically a professional criminal. Like, he's used to breaking into places and stealing and robbing and doing all this kind of stuff. You got Eli and Dimitri, the binary brothers, who were computer geeks before, but now they're like karate masters. And that fight sequence in the office where they're both trying to upload the videos. It's like, okay, I'll fight for a bit. Okay, now it's back to you. I'll fight for a bit. They're moving monitors, moving computers, trying to keep all that stuff going. What's the guy's name? The Asian dude who was the bully from the first one.
Oh, I can't remember his name now, but yeah, oh God, he's the sort of guy who's just very punchable.
Yeah.
I can't.
Anyways, you'll find it. But so he's fighting them, and Hawk's saying, it's like, dude, everybody's kicked your ass so far. And Dimitri, oh, well, I haven't yet.
He's like, well, let's switch. Dimitri stands to
goes in there and just wrecks him.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful moment. And again, such good storytelling, because it's like drawing in all the character strengths. And then when they have to upload it, they have to get out of the office, and that's protect the egg.
Yeah. And that's the whole waiting for that computer to finish uploading, and then it pops up on the monitor, and he quickly, casts to the screen so it shows. And that's when Silver comes swaggering in. I've already been in a fight today, and that doesn't matter. And yes, it does.
And another thing too, going back to when Chosen and Johnny show up at Cobra Kai and they have to take on the sensei. Mm-hmm. It's like, Chosen's like, I could beat up 6 of the old senseis myself, no problem. It took 2 of us to defeat this one guy. So as far as raising the stakes, when Johnny's there having to defeat 6 of them all by himself. It's like, that's like fighting 12 people.
Yeah.
According to the information we had before.
Yeah, and what's nice is, the sonogram falls out, and he looks at it. And at this point, he'd gotten some good licks in, but they had really ganged up on him. And he says that, I'm all hopped up on, was it Red Bull and whiskey?
White Claw and whiskey.
White Claw and whiskey. And we really get to see Johnny come into his own.
Yeah, beast mode, like protecting his family. It's like
Yeah.
this is what he's capable of at this
Yeah.
point.
And I mean, he does
He
some,
wrecked 4 of them,
yes,
which
yes.
according to the stats is like 8 people.
Eight. And then Barnes, who had been taken out with a trophy to the back of the
Yeah, the
head.
bad boy of karate.
Yeah. He comes in and I didn't know that the spear from WCW was a karate move, but I guess it is because he spears this guy and then they do some ground and pound. But yeah, I was just like, Goldberg spearing?
And I love how Johnny says, yeah, most of these were mine.
Yeah.
That reminds me of Legolas and Gimli. It's
Yeah.
like we're both the bad
That
boys of
counts as
karate.
one.
But, yeah.
The elephant counts as one. But yeah, so this whole season has been fun.
Let's go deep into Daniel versus Silver.
All right.
Because for me, that was one of the greatest fight scenes of all time. Even though technically not a lot happened, but emotionally so much happened. Was crazy.
It was a big emotional fight in terms of Daniel finally getting to exercise the demons from Karate Kid 3. Because up until that point, he didn't get a chance to fight Chosen in Karate Kid 3 because he was dealing with Barnes the whole time. So
I have something to say about that, but we'll get back to it.
Oh no, go ahead, say something.
Britain, thousands of the best home bakers.
I don't know. Oh, I'm hearing extra audio.
Don't worry about
it. Troy will fix that in post.
Yes.
So going back, time skip when Chosen and Johnny are walking, and Johnny's saying, it's like, oh yeah, I beat him up back in high school.
Yeah.
And Chosen's like, yeah, you told me a lot about that. It's like, well, I robbed his girlfriend when they were on a date. It's like, oh yeah, I pushed him down a cliff. It's like, yeah, well, we fought to the death. What are you, a ghost? To me, that was one of my favorite lines.
I like the fact that they were trying to one up each other as to how much damage they did to Daniel.
Yeah, they were doing that, and they just like, no, he gave me mercy. It's like, yeah, Daniel or LuRusso always fought for what you thought was right. It's like, yeah, I know, I saw him save a girl from a typhoon, and it's like, yeah, I saw him beat up a hockey team single-handedly, and then they start like elevating.
Yeah, like, oh, well, Daniel. He can do this, he can do that, he can walk on water.
Yeah, I saw him paralyze a guy with one hit. Who do you think taught him that? Yeah.
Yeah, the fight between Johnny and Silver, or not Johnny and Silver, Daniel and Silver was not crazy technical. There was really a lot of Daniel taking the lead on that, but a lot of it was Daniel never initiated the attack. It was a lot of him counterattacking, and
he used the Quicksilver method.
Yeah, and he even, because the thing is Silver taught it to him in 3, the whole bloody the knuckles thing, but at the same time, there was a lot of LaRusso's blocks were like two-handed blocks, stuff that he learned from Miyagi. He didn't use a lot of the stuff that he did with Silver, other than like the arm bar and holding him down.
But it was the techniques that he used, because the Quicksilver method is like, man can't stand, man can't fight.
Yeah.
First strike, bam, take out the leg. Man can't breathe, man can't fight. So Silver came at him with the silver bullet, blocked it Miyagi-Do, and then did like a Ryu Kachu to the lungs and knocked out his lungs.
Yeah.
Man can't see, man can't fight. Crane kick to the face.
Well, he was using it against him in a way.
Because he knows the technique.
When Silver tried to do that punch and he caught it between his elbow and his knee.
Yeah.
And then he does like the double punch to take out his lungs. Little things like that. It made it a fun fight. And then then Silver grabs like one of the trophies. And that's when
man can't see, man can't fight.
That's
crane kick to the eyeballs.
Yeah. Boop. Kicks it just as his head's turning, like snaps his head back, rocks him into the whatever the glass is behind him. And at that point it's like, okay, I think the fight's over, and then I think everyone comes in, gives him the hug and all that other,
And then all the Cobra Kai take off the jerseys, like
everyone's taking off their jerseys and pitching. I'm like, well, you're going to keep them warm at least, until
And the fact Carmen didn't get kicked in the stomach made me so happy. There's a whole bunch of happy ending stuff in this one.
Yeah, I like the fact that Johnny's got the new family on the way. The fact that his ex-wife is like, Johnny, you can do this.
Yeah.
made mistakes with me, you made mistakes with Robbie. This is your chance to do it right. And it was a nice touch. It really is. I like the fact that we'll be going into season 6, possibly, baby already born or baby just about to be born. So that'll be some nice drama there where John's like, I gotta go to the hospital. Stop punching me. I gotta go to the hospital. My kid's about to be born. And the fact that there was the fight between Miguel and Robbie.
Oh, that was amazing.
And then when he tells
And
him, yeah,
they echoed it to the point where now Robbie's on the railing.
yeah,
And Johnny's thinking, oh, this might have been a bad idea. And Miguel's just going savage, having flashbacks of what happened in season 2.
but then he
It's like,
stops.
yeah.
He stops. He's like, I don't want to. And
It's funny because him having mercy in season 2 is what caused that accident to happen.
yeah, but it was
And
nice.
he had mercy a second time.
But he said, I didn't want to make a mistake that'll haunt me for the rest of my life. And then Robbie's like, that mistake haunts me. Kicking him over haunts him. But it was nice. And then Johnny comes around and says, you can't do this when the baby arrives. And they're both like, baby? Because now these two are going to have a half brother.
Binary brothers.
Yeah, but they're now going to be the half brothers of this new baby. This kid's going to get, like, from both sides. He's going to get quite the karate education as he grows up. So, yeah. So I'm looking forward to season 6. Now, if I had to rate the seasons, this was not my favorite season, but it was pretty.
What would you say is your favorite? I don't know if I can rate a favorite for myself, but
season 1, honestly, was such a pleasant surprise, because when I heard that, they're gonna, Cobra Kai, they're basically, it's like a sequel to the Karate Kid movies, but done as an episodic. I was like, there's so many ways this could go wrong. There's so many ways this could just turn out horribly.
Yeah.
And it didn't. It was such a surprise that they were, advanced however many, 30 plus years to get us to where we are, but to make it plausible. So season 1 really held that bar really high. Every season, I think, has just come just under it. There's been no low seasons. But I think of all the seasons, season 1 is my favorite, because it had the most, to me, it was the most draw of pulling you right from movie 1 right into it.
Okay.
So but this also kind of sets up, with this international competition, this does set up a way for God, I just blanked on her name now. The girl,
like him.
The girl from the fourth Karate Kid movie.
Oh, for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember her name either.
There is a way for her now to come in.
Jessica something.
The next Karate Kid, Julie Pierce. So Hilary Swank, if you're listening.
Oh, there we go.
Which I doubt, but who knows? This is the way for her to show up. This would be a beautiful way for her to show up into this.
It sounds like the writers have wanted to find a way to bring her in.
Yeah,
they tend to bring people in at the right time when they need to.
Yeah, well, it's nice that they didn't just try to throw everybody they could in, like, the first 2 episodes, sort of thing. They're pacing it out. Like, Mike Barnes showing up was a nice surprise.
It was so good. I knew he was going to be in this season.
I knew it too, but it was a nice surprise of, like,
the way they did it. It's like, we're just going to take their legs off with, like, a saw, and
then you're like, oh, and it's like, no, furniture. That's what he moved on to. And you're like, oh.
And then it burns down. Then there's the party limo, and then he's just one that instigates the raid on Silver. So good.
So yeah, I had a good time with the way that they brought Barnes in. And, it's been a fun season. Season 5 has been fun. I can't wait for season 6.
Yeah, for myself, with all the different seasons, I like how they keep ramping up the stakes every single one. And like season 2, the high school fight, for me, was incredible. Like, just where Hawk goes completely psychotic. Season 4, the tournament, where Hawk wins. That was incredible. And then this season, that the fact it went full 80s bonkers and it held up. There's some stuff in this season that's easily my favorite, just because it shouldn't work. It's so good.
It does, which is,
and the payoffs, and there's actually, like, I thought Chosen died, I thought Kreese died, I thought Johnny might die. It's like, is there another season? Because this really could be the
There's
end.
a lot of people
I
dying.
thought the unborn baby could die. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. But that kind of brings up the next point is, where do you see this going after this season? And I think we should probably do this after we reset.
Well, we got a couple months. I'm going to say
Okay.
the plan is, I mean, they've got this big international competition to go to. Now, both Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do are invited to it.
Yeah.
So we've got people trying to ramp up for that because of the prizes and all, and the international acclaim and so on and so forth, because they're doing it for different reasons. But that could be the focus of season 6, is the training to be good enough to qualify for the, to be in this tournament and perhaps even winning it.
And then who's the students? Who are the villains? Who's on each side? Because right now it seems like every single kid is on Miyagi-Do at this point. Everyone who we know has abandoned Cobra Kai.
I see. The thing is also with Kreese on the run, that that's it puts some nebulous things out. Like Chosen's going to go back to Okinawa.
I think he's going to stick around, and what's her name? The girl he's into. I think she's going to show up.
Well, maybe.
What's her name? Kumiko?
Kumiko. Yeah.
I think she's going to show up. Like, I think the show writers, they put that thread in there. I think he's going to get a happy ending. And the way I see it is, Kreese is out of jail. He's now like an escaped criminal.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be the snake in the shadows. Sensei Kim is going to run Cobra Kai.
Okay.
But Kreese, because he's like the elder, and the way Silver was to her, Kreese will run it from the shadows. She'll be the front man. They're going to bring in the international students. So it's going to be the Valley students versus whatever evil villain students the hand of the fist Cobra Kai has to throw at them. That's the way I see it going. And if that happens, it could be so epic. It could be completely
if they
bonkers.
bring the hand of the fist students in from Korea,
because it's international.
They've got to bring in Chuck Norris. They have to, either as a guest ref or a guest.
Oh, imagine he was the ref. That would be amazing.
Just something.
I said that last podcast. They have to bring him in.
Yeah, Chuck Norris has to show up at the tournament, even if he's like one of the guest referees, or even a guest judge at the table. Bring in Chuck Norris, goddammit. All right, so that is a recap of Cobra Kai.
And if you haven't watched it, why? And I don't think we can be friends. Gavin, Troy.
He ain't lying. Anyways, so if you don't like the sound of my voice, this might be a time for you to maybe end your listening of the podcast. I'm going to be talking for a lot because we got some more topics to cover. I don't know how much of this stuff Mike has watched, so he'll be interjecting here and there. But without Troy to pipe up, or Gavin, it's going to be a lot of me. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just chirping from the sidelines at this point. Take it away, Trevor.
All right.
Love your voice.
All right. So this Thursday, mean green and straight poured into these jeans. She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. This was actually a very law-heavy episode, which was nice. There was a lot of time spent in the courtroom. Because at the end of the last episode, Titania she's a social media influencer, had trademarked the name She-Hulk right out from under Jennifer Walters. So as it starts out with, she's now, Walters is driving into work and she sees all these billboards and starts seeing all these commercials for She-Hulk brand line of beauty products. Some of them are actually like snake oil. And she's like, well, what the hell? So the firm says, well, you've got to deal with this because we hired She-Hulk. And she's like, but and she's like, well, she trademarked the name ahead of you. You've got to get ahead of this. So one of the other attorneys at the firm takes the case and says, all right, I'm the attorney. You're the client. You're not being your own lawyer for this. And at the same time, her legal assistant and one of the other lawyers just came up with the idea they're going to get a superhero suit for Walters, also because she also needs some regular clothes as well. So they go to an exclusive tailor who deals with, provides very clandestine tailoring services for heroes and villains and whatnot. There's a whole funny thing where they have to buy the Avengers knockoff bootleg shirts and hats and shit. I love the Avengers or the Avengers. It's just great.
Do you think Disney trademarked those? They should.
I don't know, but there has been a lot of stuff on Facebook that people have made their own versions. Like there's one of the Avengers, which is like they took the movie poster for the Avengers where they're all standing around and like Hulk is purple with green pants and Captain America's shield it looks like an American flag and his costume. It's hilarious. Anyways, and so it's kind of a spoiler. So Pug admits that he collects sneakers and he wants her help to like the what's her face the forgot her name Nikki. He wants her to help him acquire these Iron Man brand Nike shoes that are coming out, but you're only allowed one per customer, so he wants her to stand in line so we can get two pairs, one to wear and one to show. And she's like, you buy shoes and don't wear them? He's like, I'm a sneaker file. Anyways, so while this is going on, Walters and her attorney Book countersue saying that she's exploiting the She-Hulk name for business. And at first they're like, well, she doesn't want to be She-Hulk. But they're able to find, in the worst way possible, they use her Tinder dates as an example, because she made a Tinder profile or whatever the app is they say on that one. She made a Tinder profile of She-Hulk to get some dates, proving that she used the She-Hulk name for personal gain. And so these dates have to come up to the witness stand and talk about their time with She-Hulk. And it is horrifically embarrassing, but funny at the same time. And it's kind of funny. But the best part for that whole episode, the big payoff, is when Walters goes back to the clothing designer to pick up her outfits, and she's trying stuff on, and he's like, "Oh, you could put this in, like, cover this up." And one of the other people have like a hat box, and they're putting the lid on the hat box, and inside is the yellow Daredevil helmet as they're putting the lid on, and it's such a great moment. It is. We know we're going to see Daredevil. That's already been said. It's such a great moment, but to finally see it was such a big time. It was like, fuck yes, we finally get to proof that he's coming and he's wearing the red and gold outfit. It's such a great moment. Now, this episode differs from all the other She-Hulks in two ways. One, the opening title card is She-Hulk by Titania, and it's in pinks and all. Basically, she took over the title card because she owned the She-Hulk thing. And at the end, there's no post-credit or mid-credit scene. Like it's not there. And at first, I was like, "Well, what the fuck?"
I went looking for it. I went digging.
Yeah.
Like, did they put it after this? Is it in like the multi-language spot? Like,
yeah,
where
I
is it?
was like, "What?" And the real key is, so they have basically like the courtroom drawings is part of the end credits. And in one of the frames of the courtroom, the end credits courtroom drawing style is Pug and Ramos in the shoe store, and he's holding up the Iron Man shoe. That's not the big thing. The big thing is the shoes on the wall behind them. There's a Deadpool, there's a Wolverine, there's a Cyclops, there's a Korg. That's what's tying it in. So there's X-Men shoes that people are buying. It's a nice way of slowly tying these two franchises into one another. But they don't just come around up and say, "Look, X-Men on the front page." They're doing it in a very subtle way, and this was done beautifully. And unless you were really paying attention to those drawings, you'd miss it. And it was just happened that I paused the screen because the dog came in, and I was dealing with her, and I turned back, I looked through and that's Cyclops. That's Wolverine. That's Deadpool. Son of a bitch.
Why do I want some Cyclops shoes right now?
I don't know. And the thing is, they got the visor is like on top of the tongue, so it's like you can't miss it when you see that still frame. You can't miss it. It's 100%. These are, and I think there's even a Falcon one in there, like the red and white Falcon, like the original Falcon uniform, because you can see
I
like,
didn't notice that one.
yeah, it's, I think it's on the opposite wall. There's like, you see like it's a white sneaker with like red accents and a little red wing. So little stuff. Could be the Detroit Red Wings. I don't know. But anyways, it's stuff like this that it really makes me happy that they're inserting stuff. I mean, this episode was basically a filler episode. It was a way of, I mean, her and Titania are going to have to come to blows at some point, but who knows? Um, was it a favorite episode? No, not by any means. Just as I said, filler getting us to next Thursday.
Yeah,
That's
for myself, at this point, I'm watching it just for these geeking off the page discussions. I would have tapped out episodes ago. I'm not a fan of the feminist writing. If I look at She-Hulk compared to the stuff we discussed in Cobra Kai
Mhm.
and the narrative threads and what the overall message is, like this last episode was so much. Oh my God, it's so hard to date in your 30s. And oh, all my Tinder boyfriends, they're so embarrassing. And I have to use them to win my court case. And oh my God, I need some new clothes. It's like, this isn't the John Byrne She-Hulk I know.
It's unfortunate, but also I think some of the writing he did for those comics would not translate well to today.
It would not. I agree. I agree with that. But you could keep the spirit of it in a certain way. Like there's a certain cheesecake, a certain playfulness. Again, it was written by a male comedy writer for male comic book guys. Like it's different. They took this and decided to give it to female writers and do a more feminist spin on it. And like the two, I guess, ideas of comedy, the two points of view where the story is coming from is completely different. Whereas one is like, oh my God, it's so hard to be, a 30-year-old lawyer who doesn't have a boyfriend, who's trying to be a professional in this hard world with a bunch of guys, rather than it's like, look at She-Hulk. She's awesome. Let's do funny things. Yeah. Let's have some fun.
I think it's also, I mean, the audience they're targeting for.
And I'm curious because Troy said, and Troy, interject if you want, since you edit this. He said his daughter was all interested in watching it. And so, that's a very young girl who's interested in the series.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious about that. With me, I don't like it enough where I'm watching it with my family. So I have no idea.
Well,
I'm watching it on the side in the work,
Ask your daughter, see if they're watching it.
I'm pretty sure they're not. They were watching young Weird Al Yankovic upstairs right now.
Oh, okay.
I mean Harry Potter.
Yeah. Oh, okay, him. So something else that came out this week that I did catch, Cyberpunk Edgerunners.
Oh, I did not see that.
On Netflix, 10 episodes.
Did you watch all 10?
I watched all 10.
All right. Info dump. Jack me in.
All right.
Hank.
This is our college cyberpunk adventures. 100%. You've got a young man who he's attending a very prestigious academy his mom can barely afford, kind of doesn't want to go, finds out that his mom, to make ends meet, she works as she's one of the trauma people, like, the trauma doc sort of thing. So it starts out, we see a soldier going cyber psycho. So much cybernetics, he basically goes through complete psychosis and just starts killing indiscriminately. And eventually they call out Max Tech, who are there. Basically, they know how to take out heavily cyber augmented people, and they kill him. And so our protagonist is watching this through a sim VR.
What was that called in our Cyberpunk John Scallan days? C-SWAT.
Yeah. Cyber SWAT. So this kid, David, finds out that his mom, she is like one of the trauma teams that work these various sites. She has been stealing tech and selling it through the black market. That's how she affords to pay. You can afford to pay for his, this high-end education through one of the corporations. Anyways, on the way home, after he had some pirate tech that kind of frizzed out what the lesson at the school, and the mom's all pissed off. So they're on the way home. She's has told the school she'll pay for damages, and they get caught in the middle of a street battle. Like they get caught in a crossfire, and the car flips. He wakes up. Trauma team show up. They scan both of them and go, no contract, no contract, and leave. And he basically watches his mom in front of him, like he's trapped in the car upside down. The seatbelt won't disengage. His mom's laying on the road and she's dead. Or by the time, oh no, sorry, she's dying. They get her to like just a city doc. He's like, we perform the surgeries that we can based on her insurance plan. She's stable. How are we going to pay for this? And then he goes to class, gets beaten up by the son of one of the higher corps, who uses a chipped in fighting skills, beats him up, finds out his mom's died. So now they're like, so we can drop the body off at your house, or we could drop it off at a funeral home, or for a cheaper expense, we can just cremate her. And so you see him with the urn of his mother's ashes. And you've got the school calling him saying, where's the money you promised us? He's locked out of his apartment because his mom hadn't paid rent. But he finds in her bag Sandestian cybernetic implant for the spine, basically a nerve jacker, speed up your nervous system. And he takes it to the local Ripper doc and has it installed, and realizes with this he can accelerate himself to an unnatural degree for a very brief period of time. And that's kind of how the whole series starts. Pretty much like most of our campaigns would start. So it's just like, it's pure.
So is this an actual series then? It's a continuing story, not a bunch of shorts?
It is a 10 episode continuing series.
I thought it would be like Star Wars Visions with
no, but it is.
Ones.
And each episode is anywhere between 23 to 26 minutes long. And honestly, not long enough, because there's just so much shit going on. Like so the Sanderson gives him superhuman strength, speed, and reflexes for a very brief period of time. Doc warns him, you can use it maybe twice before the meat's going to fail. In a single day, he uses it 8 times. He just has an unnatural ability to withstand the effects. After a 8th time, it gets a bit of a nosebleed, that sort of thing. He meets up with a pickpocket who steals people's chips out of their head as she walks by on the subway. And so he decides to kind of hook up with her. Meanwhile, company that developed this, they realize, he, of course, like any kid, goes and gets revenge on his bully, beats the shit out of him. And his dad's like, well, looks like he can withstand using it. Let's use him as a test subject. Fuck my son. Little bastard should have put up more of a fight. Anyways, so David ends up connecting with Lucy, the pickpocket, who's part of a larger street gang, led by a guy named Maine, just like the state, who's this big cybernetic guy. And so they have a bunch of jobs, and throughout these jobs, he is learning, how to drive, how to shoot, how to be basically a street samurai. And it's a really fun episode. Like, the whole season is just so much fun to watch. I highly recommend it if you like Cyberpunk in any way. They have net running, beautifully choreographed battles. And characters are not bulletproof. People take damage. People on the team die. And yeah, it is so much fun to watch. I had a great time watching this whole season.
Rolled a 1 followed by a 20. Damn it.
Yeah, there's so many of that. And it's just, I had so much fun watching this whole season. And yeah, there's like at some point Maine goes cyber psycho, and you can tell because they start with like hand twitching, and then their vision starts blurring out. And it looks like at one point they have like 3 pupils going on because they're starting to get all jittery. Um, it's yeah, and as I said, I just had such a fun time with this whole series. You got to watch it. I don't want to give away how it goes. But yeah, at one point, David eventually takes over running the crew, and holy shit, when he does, it's impressive. He's come a long way from that skinny little, high school student sort of thing.
Oh,
Again,
I'm sold. I'm a
just like
huge Cyberpunk fan,
yeah,
so I'm
just
all in.
yeah, and they balance it nicely in terms of we're mainly following David, but we also follow some of the side characters to get some of their backstory here and there. Um, and the way they handle net running works really well. So yeah,
And if you've
honestly,
watched it all the way to the end, you think they land the ending?
they do. They land the ending well enough that I was like, huh. And I looked over my bookshelf and like, where's my Cyberpunk book? Um, realizing I probably need some of the updates. It really made me want to play Cyberpunk again. It really did. It's, I mean, and this is done. I mean, this is written by the same guys. What's their name? CD Project Red, who did the video game. Um, this is done by Studio Trigger, one of the studios that did like the Star Wars mini shorts there that we watched. Um, it is so much fun. As I said, I mean, I've seen the game, the Cyberpunk 2077 by CD Projekt Red. This would fit in perfectly, and I believe this is part of an update they're doing to the game. So they'll be able to meet some of the characters from this show in the game and stuff like that. But yeah,
As you were talking, I've been Googling stuff on the side and looking at little clips. And Forbes says that Cyberpunk Edgerunners has some of Netflix's highest audience scores ever.
yeah, I can see why. It is such a fun series to watch. It really is, and the animation is just, right on par. Like just it's everything it needs to be without going over the top. It was so much fun to watch. I honestly wish
Is
I
it
could.
set up to have a season 2? Does it look like it'll continue, or
I'm
is
not gonna say. I'm
that
not gonna say.
spoilers?
I'm not gonna say that's too big of a spoiler. You- yeah,
Okay, no comment.
exactly. I'll say no comment, but I will say that. I mean, I was ready. The show kind of. I think at around. It's like I think it's after episode 6. The show takes a hard turn because there's so much that goes on in episode 6
Okay.
that 7 feels like almost like a is the start of the season 2, but it's not. That's all I'm going to say. You'll when you're watching the episode, you'll know when you hit episode 7, you're like, this is season 1, season 2, episode 1. But it's not. But yeah,
Okay.
they could have honestly they could have released the first 6 as season 1 and then released 7 through 10 as season 2, and people wouldn't have there would have been no outcry about that other than why the fuck are you making us wait a whole year for season 2.
Right.
Yeah, that's how good I think this is. Like it was a fun watch.
Okay. I may have to binge this for next week.
Yes, please do. I definitely want your take. Gavin's take. We played Cyberpunk. Troy, anyone who's played Cyberpunk has to watch this because I'd love to see how Scallon reacted to it. Like that would be a huge one.
We should bring him on as a guest.
Yeah. And just I think hearing his take on this, because I got so many flashbacks of Scallon's Cyberpunk adventures while watching this. I was just like, holy shit. I'm like, yeah, we could have totally been that whole crew there. That would have been us
Yeah.
in the adventure. We're seeing like the NPCs in the background, but now it's like the NPCs are the main focus. And I was like, that totally could have been us over there.
Man, I remember the very first Cyberpunk adventure with Scallon. We were rolling up all the characters. I just had to like a grungy street cyberpunk type dude. So he had like a revolver because he was old school, green mohawk, trench coat. We were all part of the police force. The big fight happened. Roll the damage, get shot in the head, dead. First game, I was like, what in the hell? So when I came back next one, okay, new character. I am gonna Scallon proof this character so hard.
It didn't matter.
It did. Oh man, I had that character, the Malcolm Rhodes. He had the cybernetic arm, the big cyber killing gun. His authority was 10. He would order orbital strikes and just take out the whole strip. It's like, okay, roll your authority, 10 followed by 10.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay, so you call up the military and it's an orbital strike and they're all dead.
Yeah, we did. I think with the one campaign I did with him, we were all cops.
Yeah.
And it was just like I think Gavin was like the completely cybernetic.
Appleseed.
Yeah, but he was also corrupt.
What did he call it? Ferris? I think the character's name is
But he
Ferris.
wasn't he corrupt as I know one of the members of the team was corrupt as hell and reporting on us the whole time in the back.
Oh, I think that was Matt Campbell's character. He had the assassin chick who was evil.
Like,
If I remember
right. is we're like we offed some guy on the street, not intentionally, but he did attack us, and we were like we could let him go, and I was like, it's gonna come to bite us in the ass, and I just like bang killed him, and then like next thing I know, I'm being like thrown against the car in handcuffs because suddenly the other cop showed up. I'm like, you killed this guy. I'm like, the only people who witnessed it is our team. I mean, there was no cameras because I made sure there was no cameras. There was no way anyone saw that. And they knew exactly who to grab. And I was like, son of a bitch, someone's squealing. We have a mole. I just remember Gavin going, there's no mole on this team. I'm like, it's probably you then.
What could have been? I guess the cyborg.
Yeah,
like or because
the person who claims
robot could have been monitored.
Yeah, I was so pissed at that because I had to sit a game out because while they processed me and figured out if they were going to press charges, and then like, it's not worth it. Reinstate them. Okay.
Well, if Gavin was here, he could, plead for his defense, but he's not. So we'll just say he's the guilty party and be done with it.
Sure, I'll take it. So my recommendation is definitely if you haven't, go watch Cyberpunk Edgerunners on Netflix. 10 episodes. You're not wasting your time. You'll have a good time watching it.
All right, sold.
All right. From there, so on Friday, yesterday, my daughters, my wife, and I, we watched the Disney Plus Pinocchio.
I thought you were going to say Morbius.
No, I'll get to that. Oh my God. I'll just do a quick thing. So Morbius was on Netflix, and I thought it can't be as bad as people say.
Was it?
It was fucking worse. I don't know how this travesty could be made. Like,
I thought the trailer looked fairly decent for a crappy side spin Spider-Man villain movie.
Daniel Espinosa should be hiding in shame at this moment. The fact that they spent $80+ million making this movie. I mean, it made 160 back in the box office. So in theory, I mean, the idea is for whatever budget a movie is, you have to double it for their advertising. So if a movie cost $50 million, they probably spent about 100 million total, 50 on the movie and 50 on advertising. So in theory, this movie broke even, but that's not good enough because this movie was so fucking terrible. Effects that would have made you sit up and go, ooh, that's interesting. Maybe back in 2005. Luckily, maybe in 2005, you're like, ooh, that's an interesting effect. You got to remember, Lord of the Rings came out around that time, so it'd be some heavy competition. This movie had terrible writing, terrible effects, the story written on like a gum wrapper. It was just, and the acting. I'm sorry, you could have used 2x4s with angry faces drawn on them and just paraded them around in front of the camera. It would have been a better acted film.
Lethargic Lass.
This was such a waste of Matt Smith. I'm surprised he hasn't scrubbed this off his resume. Matt Smith's in this movie, by the way, if you didn't know.
I didn't know that.
He's the...
Or maybe I did.
Yeah, but
I've kind of scrubbed this movie from my memory as well without seeing it.
Such a waste. Yeah. And I mean, Michael Keaton makes an appearance at the end as Falcon, or sorry, as Vulture. But even that can't save the movie. It was just fucking terrible. Holy shit! I can't tell you how much I hated that movie. Anyways, so back to Pinocchio. The family and I are watching Pinocchio. It is honestly nothing's changed from the animated version. Not a goddamn thing. They in lockstep with the animated version. There was no deviation, all the same major scenes, a lot of the same major, they didn't even change the dialogue. Monster looked kind of cool because instead of just being a giant sperm whale, he was a little bit more monstrous and had giant tentacles coming out from behind his fins. So
That's weird.
yeah, he's
Okay.
more of a kraken whale sort of thing. That was about the only change in the whole goddamn film. And the fact that at the end they said, well, you don't know if Pinocchio became a real boy, but as he's walking away with Geppetto, as they're walking off, you can see his wooden limbs turn into like flesh because you see like the joint, like a standard hinge, like a wooden mechanical hinge joint turns into like an actual knee. That's your only indication that he actually turned into a real boy. But
What about Stromboli?
oh God, so one of the worst. So the thing I love about the original animated Pinocchio movie was Stromboli, animated by Bill Taya. He That character had power. That character had a presence on screen. When Stromboli's on the screen in the animated version, you can't take your eyes off him. The way he moves, the way he acts, the voice, everything is just amazing.
And you were in fear for Pinocchio.
Yeah, you were like, holy shit, he's gonna die. Or he's gonna be hurt by this guy. So they got this Italian actor to be Stromboli. The guy's not a small guy. He's pretty heavy set, but that looks like they put him in this like comical fat suit, and then this horrible like pubic hair beard, something that you wouldn't even buy at a costume shop because that'd be too expensive. It looks like
Austin
they just
Powers, fat bastard.
not even that good. It looks like they just like cut some people's hair and then like randomly glued it to his face. And you can see him sweating, and you can see him sweating over the appliances. Like it just was not good. Not good at all. And the way it was acted, it was just like, did he even watch the animated version he's supposed to be, using as a guide? Because Stromboli was just a giant comic relief for no reason. You weren't afraid for Pinocchio. You were just more like, can Pinocchio get away from this guy? Can we advance the story because I'm bored of this guy? It was just, yeah, it felt so much. I even made a comment. It felt so much like at the last minute, they're like, oh shit, we forgot Stromboli. You come here, come here. We're gonna dress you in a costume. Just kind of be big, fat, and menacing. Go. And that's as much as they did. And it was just to see one of my childhood villains reduced in such a way, it was just like, oh,
That's always a shame.
it was just, I was just like, that fucking sucks. Now, something else I did because I can't leave it alone. So anyone who knows me has heard me complain multiple times about how much I fucking hate the fact that Disney is going out of their way to remake animated films, as these live action travesties. And I was
I've
like,
heard that before.
yeah, you might have heard that before if you've listened to the podcast. And part of it has been like, why are they doing it? Well, money. Simple as that. I mean, there's really no other way. I mean, there's this, oh, we're reintroducing the classics to the modern age. No, they can go watch the animated films. They hold up. They hold up well. The fact that a lot of these are shot for shot remakes, just with live action ish sort of,
I like the ish on the end of that.
well, I mean, like Lion King, the no animals were actually filmed. So
Yeah.
I'm going to share my screen here, and you're going to see my annoyance. So I have made this chart in Excel, and I have the original film listed first, and then its remake. I have the year, the budget they spent to make this film, how much the box office gross was, how much of a return they saw if you simply subtract the budget from the gross, and what kind of percentage they're looking at as a return. As you can see, Cinderella, The Jungle Book, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Lion King, the original Pinocchio, over 1,000% return on what they spent. You look at the live action versions, some of them are pretty high, like 471% return.
Some are in the red.
Some are in the red. I look at anything under 200% is in the red because when you pay for the movie and advertising, you have to make double your budget back. Some of these films didn't do it. Some of these films didn't do it by a lot. So something like Lady and the Tramp and Pinocchio were released directly to Disney Plus. So the revenue they see, their box office gross, is new subscribers. So in the case of Lady and the Tramp, they spent 60 million making this film, and they got 14.3 million back, is what they made in new subscribers. So they lost $45 million. So this movie was a minus 70%, 76% loss from what they spent to what they got back. Mulan, which actually did go to theaters, lost 65%. Pinocchio is tracking to lose 83%. So some of these films they're making for a giant loss. When you compare it to the originals where they're making over 1,000% in revenue up, why are you remaking them then? Like, what's the idea? Like, a couple of them. So let's see. For example, The Lion King made $1.3 billion. I mean, I'm sorry, $1.6 billion in the box office. They made $1.3 billion in profit. But then again, you have to, take away 200 or 250 million for advertising. They're still making a lot of money on that.
Yeah, Lion King kicked ass. Jungle Book 2.
Yeah, but the problem is,
And Cinderella, actually.
Yeah. Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and Lion King all made over $1 billion in the box office. The remake versions. But the original Lion King made 968 million with 1/5 the budget. 1/5 the budget, and they made almost $1 billion.
I love Lion King as an example because that's when we keep talking about how that was one they weren't paying attention to it. So the artists did their thing and they made some movie magic and became a classic.
And they made over a 2,000% profit off The Lion King. Now, so as I said, I did this just to kind of put it on. So in terms of how much money they've spent on just these films, they've spent $1.8 billion. They've made back $9.2 billion. So they're sitting about 7.3 in profit, which is about 400% in profit. So they've made 4 times as much money on the money they've spent. That's good. But when you start breaking it down film by film, you start to realize they're not making as much on these newer films. They're spending a lot more money for a lot less return. So the problem is, for me, then why the fuck are you making it?
Because there's people in the business, someone who wants their name on it, someone who wants to hire a director, wants to be producer, wants to cash in on something they know they can get a little bit back.
Get a little bit of money back.
The mouse is going to be paying for it. So as long as that pays for your condo and your car, and
I look at it was the same as like when Gus Van Sant did a shot-for-shot remake of Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck was the point? The movie's already been made once. It was fine.
Yeah.
It's considered, to be one of the finer pieces of cinema. Why would you remake it? I think if the real thing is, if you're a director and you want to show your chops, don't remake a great movie. Take a terrible movie and remake it so it's an awesome movie. That's the challenge.
Like Karate Kid 3?
Yeah. So
it's true, and that's what season 5 did. They took all the elements from a terrible movie and created one of the greatest entertainment things ever.
Yeah, but to me, that's the mark of a real director, is someone who can take something that was just fucking terrible and actually make something good out of it. It is possible. You can do it. But these Disney remakes they grind my gears to no end. Every time they're like, "Ooh, now we're going to remake it." Just fucking stop. All you're saying is that the people who are coming up with these ideas are so lacking in honest original ideas that they're just scrambling to justify why the hell they're employed. Just cut the dead weight, fire their asses. And I know Jon Favreau was talking about, well, the stuff they did in the Jungle Book helped them do the stuff that they did in the Lion King. Yeah, but both films were unfucking necessary. So, that's a moot point.
I did enjoy Jungle Book. I've said that before.
Yeah.
I think it was completely unnecessary. And I will stand by that, but I did enjoy it.
So yeah, that's my rant on Disney live action remakes of animated films. I just wish they'd stop.
Talking about the remakes, and we've been talking about the race swaps and everything else, and this giant freaking robot site posted this thing where I guess AI had decided to I guess do a deep fake on Ariel, and I don't know. This is better if you can hear the audio. I don't know if audio is enabled.
It should be.
Anyways, this very short clip.
The thing is, you can see like her chest kind of darkens and brightens and dark, and then something happens to her eye there when she blinks. It's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, there's something kind of weird with it, but to me, it just captured more what the original cartoon character looked like. And I know there's a whole contingency of people that say, well, we have to make characters that look like other characters or people that they can relate to and all that kind of stuff.
Well, they didn't in
Fine.
Stromboli.
Well, they didn't do that, no. And I understand where that viewpoint's coming from. Like, Patrick Stewart, Jean-Luc Picard was a hero of mine because I knew for sure, based on my family genetics, I was going to go bald at some point. It's like, yes, I can be a starship captain and just rock the bald look. So I understand there's a certain element of finding characters you can relate to visually, but I'll keep bringing up my son who wanted to be Black Panther, Wakanda forever. I don't think you have to be bound by the skin pigment or hair follicles or hell, even gender. After watching the original Wonder Woman, I wanted some golden bracelets that I could block bullets.
Ting, ting, ting.
Yeah, like you don't have to be confined by that. So to make a remake of an animated cartoon that's basically shot for shot, but then you introduce that. So, well, what are we doing here? Or is this pandering? Is this like a remake? Is this something else? And somebody had posted, I don't know if it was from like a Little Mermaid cartoon or a sequel, but there was a dark skinned mermaid in that one.
There was. There was
Why
one.
not make a movie about her?
Yeah, there's one who was deaf, I think, because they had like Ariel sign, like using sign language. I honestly, when they said we're gonna remake the Little Mermaid, but we're gonna make the Little Mermaid black, I was like, rather than doing the Disney version of the Little Mermaid, why
Right,
not
like
just
scene for scene remake
yeah,
of the
just
animated one.
yeah, just do a whole new movie with a mermaid.
Yeah,
What's stopping you? Like what's But no, they want to cash in on the name. Again,
you could have it off the coast of Africa. It could be an
Yeah.
entire black cast. It could be a whole generation of people where this is their mermaid story.
yeah, like
I get
sure.
Watchmen it.
I'm sure there is cultures that are along coastlines. I'm sure you will find there's probably a cultural story of a mermaid somewhere in anywhere. But it's just like, I mean, the original mermaids were manatees. That's because they when they were in Florida and they would, or in around the Everglades, they'd see the manatees like, that must be a mermaid.
See, I would have been really impressed if the live action version was a CG manatee that would sing to people, like,
Yeah, there you go.
who got legs and waddled around. That would be amazing.
But I've just, again, it's Disney being, they're trying to play it safe by using name recognition, brand recognition of these, and then it's just, then you get someone who's like, well, let's tweak a character, or let's do this, or it's like, in for a penny, in for a pound, I guess. But stop remaking these animated films. Make new ones, new stories. I would love to see a new story.
And honestly, I understand if it's a passion project somehow. Like, for some reason, if this movie was an actors or producers, whatever dream of, they always wanted to be a part of something like this, and they did a passion project where they did an Alan Moore remake.
Yeah.
For that inclusion and to, I guess, include, yeah. It's almost like a Miles Morales, even though that was a very check the box to do a new one.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was, say, like Mark Bernardin wanted to do a Spider-Man story that he could relate to more and did a spin on it,
yeah,
I could appreciate that a little bit more, because you're trying to take an element that meant something to you and pull yourself into it to create this new entity. I could appreciate that. But these corporate things where it's just a straight remake for the cash grab and also trying to check all the diversity boxes, I just get so pissed off.
Well, this is the thing that gets me is also, so they have cast Jonah Hauer King as Eric, British actor, kind of looks like Eric from the animated film. And someone on Facebook had posted, well, if you're gonna do a black actress for Little Mermaid, why don't you get Ruby Rose to be Eric, and and so it's Erica, and it's Princess, if you're going to start changing stuff around and start changing the story, change more things then.
And honestly, I'm cool with that because
I'd be fine with that
they're all
too.
make 'em up stories. Like this didn't actually exist. This is all a make 'em up.
Yeah.
So you can do that, but at least you're more honest.
Yeah, I mean,
You're doing your own
if
take.
they really wanted to be horrifying, they could do the original Hans Christian Andersen Little Mermaid, which little kids would not want to watch. It would be horrifying.
See, I want to watch that one.
No, you don't. No, I remember when I read that story, actually shortly after, I think it was shortly after high school, but before college. And I was like, this is dark. This is not something kids need to see or imagine.
Somebody should do that, honestly. Like go back to all those original fairy tales and de-Disneyfy them. Like,
undisneyfy them. There'd be a lot of bad endings. They did not, for the most part, they did not end well. So when I saw the push for this, for the Little Mermaid, again, I was like, why the fuck are they remaking a perfectly good animated film? And they're like, oh, we're going to change it. But I was like, I don't care who's in the lead role. I don't care if they're black, white, green, a frog, a kumquat,
manatee.
a manatee. That doesn't matter to me. I don't care about the skin color. Now, all the people are getting up in arms, but you can't change my Disney classic. I'm more of the camp of stop fucking with the animated films. That's my personal beef. I don't care if they're like, oh, we're gonna make a whole new Little Mermaid film, whole new story, whole new, have at it. Absolutely. We're gonna make a shot for shot remake of the animated film. I'm like, do I need to punch you in the throat? Like,
and I agree. One thing that irks me, and I'm sure you feel the same way, working in computer animation, all this kind of stuff, is how much work goes into every single shot. And
every shot, every frame.
You're just doing a remake. You're doing a rotoscope of something that already existed, and there's no soul in it. This is a corporate cash grab.
Yeah.
And there were some shots in that trailer, the Little Mermaid one, which were beautiful. Like with the mermaid tail going underwater. It's like absolutely beautiful. Did it need to happen? No. What was I doing with 5 months of my life? 10 months, 2 years, however long it was.
I read something from it. It's a disgruntled animator site, and someone on there talked about their experience working on, was it The Lion King? I think it was The Lion King, having to, on their main monitor, they've got the 3D software they're working in. They have a secondary monitor that has notes and all that stuff and the storyboards, and they have a third monitor of the scene from the original animated film looping. And they're having to, and the notes they have is breaking down the scene that has the exact same length. And they're being told, and they have notes from the original scene that where to put the keys, where and basically they're just following. It's just they're rotoscoping that, because he even joked in there, sometimes he saw other people who were taking the video footage, because the whole film was cut up scene by scene by scene by scene by scene, and you'd be assigned shot 731. So you would get that, you get all the information, and including that would be a video file of shot 731. And some people were, instead of just watching it on a separate monitor, embedded in behind their camera view, so on their camera, so they could see it in one of their windows to the camera view, and they were just moving whatever it was, whatever animal it was, to match up exactly, and then they delete the video file, hand it to the supervisor, and be like, looks great.
Hell, that's what I would be doing, and it would be soul sucking.
Absolutely.
A little piece of my soul would die the entire time doing that.
I would just be like, I'm just doing this for the paycheck. That's all I'm doing. That's entirely what you're doing that for, because you could honestly train a monkey to do that job. It requires no talent, no artistic talent, no vision. It's all been done for you. You're just moving the 3D model to match what's already been done, and then you hand it off to the next department to texture it and light it and do whatever with it, because there's absolutely no soul in it.
Yes. One of the most fun things about working in feature films is the creativity aspect. Like when you can bring something to a character or a shot that's uniquely you. I had so many of those moments on Hellboy, plus a bunch of other movies I worked on, but One for Hellboy was the Samael creature, like giving him the frog swim cycle.
Yeah,
Because originally it was supposed to be like a shark. It's like, well, no, Abe's gonna swim like that because he's the mermaid guy, and
yeah,
the frog is a main character in the original Hellboy comic. So let's have Samael swim like a frog. I said, well,
well, you even
okay, do a
mentioned
test. And Guillermo said, yeah, let's go with that.
when you even mentioned, having doing the Pris die sequence, like
Yeah,
death, it inspired you to do that. I doubt you took the video file of Pris and put it in behind and matched it frame by frame by frame.
right. Just
You,
watch it a lot of times,
yeah,
figure out some keyframes, and like, okay, what does this look like? And again, it's a big demon instead of a small girl, so it's going to move different.
yeah,
But
and
you get the inspiration,
you have the
and when
inspiration.
it connects to people, it
Yeah,
feels so good.
I look at it as you use that to inspire yourself, but you then had to use your own creativity to make it work.
And that's what gives you joy.
Yeah,
And when you
especially when you see
have
something like that
animators,
done.
yeah, when you work with other animators too, you realize that. Like when you're supervising animators and you give them that chance for creativity, it's like, hey, do your thing on this. And you see them light up and the animation comes to life and the
Yeah,
work becomes more joy.
I
Like that's
remember
the way you should do it. Not,
I remember
hey,
working
rotoscope it.
on um Gerald McBoing, and I mean we were under such a crunch that they had compositors animating and animators compositing. Like it was ridiculous. And I remember I got the scene and it was just Gerald sitting there, Gerald sitting there and his friends talking, blah, 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 blah. And Gerald sits there like a fucking statue. And I had been handed the scene to quickly composite. And I looked at it and was like, I looked at Gerald and there was no animation at all. And I remember the head of the compositing department looked at me and he's like, Gerald's got to do something. It's a still frame. And I'm like, I can make him blink. He's like, try blinking him a couple times. Just make it look like he's actually alive, and they didn't just replace him. So I had him blink a couple times, and I had like a slow shift, like so he just kind of shifts his weight from one to the other.
A nice moving hold.
It was a moving hold. But I remember looking at it and going, it's not enough. It's not. I mean, yeah, your attention's on the friend talking, but the problem was it wasn't a short scene. It was like 9 seconds of this kid talking and gesturing and stuff, and Gerald looking like a painting. And even though that he, did a weight shift and he blinked like, 3, 4 times, it wasn't. So I just, had him just lift his arm up and go and put it back down. Just a simple, like, just, any little kid would do it. Like you got a little tickle in your nose, you just kind of wipe your nose and your arm and keep going. It took me, the whole thing was less than a second. It was 12 frames, just up, 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 down, down, down. And I remember the director stopped by my desk and he was like, you brought Gerald to life. Because we would get notes about the scene, like Gerald's not moving. Because that was the problem is a couple of the animators, they would animate the primary character doing whatever. If there was a secondary character, they didn't move. And they'd be constantly like, this, like the girl character, she needs to do something. She needs to she's watching Gerald move around making all these noises and she's not reacting all. It looks horrible. So positive department would be like, well, I'm gonna get some animation in here. And I'd have her like, she's watching Gerald and like maybe she like kind of roll her eyes a bit at some of the sound effects or kind of scuff her shoe a bit just to move her, just to make her do something.
Yeah.
And so I think it was after we did Gerald and we were on to a different production. Our line producer had cherry picked a handful of scenes, including the little wiping the nose scene. And he was playing it for the new animators and saying, these are the little things you need to do to secondary characters. Even if it's a primary character who's in a secondary role, they still have to move. They still have to look like they're doing things that living people do. Because the second they stop, because this is all done on computer, even though it looks hand drawn, but it's all being done digitally, the character's not going to, like, the lines aren't going to boil and give them like false movement. They're just going to stop and look like they just became part of the background. You have to move them. And it was just a little moment that you could see all the different people like, oh. And then someone had said, well, what can we do? And I remember the line producer saying, anything that comes into your fucking mind that does not distract from the main performance, but still keeps them alive. Other than that, sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And suddenly we had people like, character would do this as he's waiting or scratch his head or maybe pull his shirt a bit or and it was like the show looks so much better. But it was giving them that freedom, and suddenly the animators were more happy with their jobs because they could, stretch themselves creatively a little bit, try some new things. And I'm finding that more and more especially with fresh animators like absolute beginners. The character hits a pose and dies, and they stop moving, and you're like, oh God, please don't do that again.
Yeah.
So when I read this thing about this guy talking about animating on the Lion King, and they were just like, I was like, that I would probably you'd be in the US, I could buy a gun and blow your brains out, because I would rather do data entry.
Well, essentially that's what you're doing.
Yeah,
a weird kind of
or
way.
work in a gas station, or shovel shit out of the gutters, or pick up trash in a park, because it'd be far more rewarding than just rehashing someone else's work.
No, if there's any animators listening to this that worked on The Little Mermaid and really enjoyed it, or Lion King, or any of these other movies, hey, no hate. I understand. It's a day job.
It's a job. It pays the bills, make sure you have a roof over your head and food in your belly and clothes on your back, and kids are happy. But yeah, I am not a fan of when these sort of production ideas come through and creative people have to suffer. Let animators animate.
Creative people suffering. Yeah, that really grinds my soul.
It does. So from there,
I guess we should do top 10. Oh wait,
we can't.
2 of our co-hosts are gone.
But I have other stuff to talk about.
Oh, okay.
So coming up just around the corner, Disney Plus is going to be releasing the Star Wars series Andor. This is all talking about the character of Cassian Andor. The premise is about 5 years before the beginning of the events of Rogue One. We're going to follow Cassian as during the formation of the Rebel Alliance against the Galactic Empire. So he's a thief who becomes a revolutionary and eventually becomes a captain. And that's what we're going to be following is his character.
What's your vibe on this? I'm pretty tapped out on a lot of Star Wars stuff at this point. What do you think from what you've seen? I haven't seen anything.
I've seen a couple of things. Now, they've already talked about it's going to be in 2 seasons. First season is 12 episodes. Second season is 12 episodes.
They've committed that much already.
They've already committed to a second 12-episode season, which is already in development. And will conclude as the series leads directly into the events of Rogue One. So they're saying after 24 episodes, you watch Rogue One, and then he dies. The problem is, we know he dies in Rogue One. We know that through these 24 episodes, this character is never in any peril, ever. He's going to get through.
And we've talked about this before in other podcasts, but I'll reiterate. If you're going to do a story like that, one character has plot armor, like say an Indiana Jones. Yeah. You're pretty sure he's going to make it through the movie. So no matter how perilous the situation is, pretty good chance he's going to make it. Yeah. So you can give a character plot armor, but you better have a damn good story. You have to be on the edge of the seat the whole time. The things
I would rather follow another character that Andor interacts with. Yeah. And so that maybe this character dies at the end of the first season. So now there's someone else Andor has to interact with in the second season. So that makes someone else the main character. When you have the main character that has this kind of plot armor, it really cheapens the experience. Now I know they have Forrest Whitaker's coming back as Saw Gerrera. There's been no official thing of how how he gets his droid partner there that we see in Rogue One. What's his name again? Queso. K2SO was done by Alan Tudyk. We don't know how he gets them. Hopefully in this series it'll explain how they interact and how he reprograms them and blah blah blah. But we don't know yet. And hopefully it doesn't happen in the first episode, because that'd be fucking horrible.
I hope they don't have a shower together. That would suck.
Yeah. Long hot showers together. But it just, I'm probably going to watch at least a couple of episodes of it. If it's shot well and the story is at least entertaining enough, I will continue with it. But if it is just him running from situation to situation, we know he's going to survive, I'm probably going to tap out pretty quick. I just think there's more interesting characters they could have followed than Cassian Andor.
Like the Mandalorian? The fact that Obi-Wan and Boba Fett I stopped caring about, two of my favorite characters in the Star Wars franchise, I stopped caring about them. The fact Dollar Store Boba Fett has the best series,
Yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah. So that's Andor. And now that comes out in like 2 weeks, 1 week, September. Hold on, September 21st is the first episode. I think actually they're releasing 3 episodes on September 21st, so you can watch episodes 1, 2, and 3. So that might be enough to get the fish hook in and pull me into episode 4. We'll see. But I think bigger news than that was Disney has officially removed Rogue Squadron from their lineup of films. This was the one that was supposed to be directed by Patty Jenkins. It was supposed to come out a year this coming December, I think mid-December of 2023. It has been pulled off the calendar officially by Disney. Part of it, I think, is because of how underwhelming Wonder Woman 1984 was. But I think Patty Jenkins would have done this movie justice. Her dad was a fighter pilot. She grew up, military brat with a dad who was a fighter pilot. She would understand the mentality of fighter pilots. Instead, we get, it being canceled. And it's just like, I was actually, as I said, this was like Top Gun, Star Wars Top Gun. We could have seen, Wedge Antilles. I mean, I still say a series from Wedge Antilles talking about old battles.
As Top Gun. Like,
yeah, like
that vibe. That could work.
I would love to have seen, I just can't remember who played Wedge Antilles. I just forgot his name. I know it's a.
You're asking the guy with the bad memory for names.
I know.
Keep talking, I'll find out.
Dennis Lawson.
That's who I was going to say.
Related to Ewan McGregor. Anyway, if he narrated, started off each episode with him talking about the battle of such and such, and then we, do like a cross wipe or whatever kind of, or a circle wipe, whatever Lucasfilm wipes we like, and we actually get to see the battle, and we see a young Wedge flying those battles, and interacting with the other members of Red Squadron, because they weren't Rogue Squadron at that point. Interacted with Gold Squadron and all the other. I would watch the shit out of a series like that. Do 10 episodes as he marches, talks about the various battles. You can even have like episode 5. He talks about the first Death Star battle, and episode 10 he talks about the second Death Star battle, because he's the only pilot who wasn't a Jedi or on the Millennium Falcon that survived both. So that would be a great series. I would watch the hell of that. Or people have talked about doing a Lando Calrissian series with Donald Glover, reprising his role, and you have the original Lando doing the voiceover narration, and then we cut to,
or heck, even put Billy Dee Williams right in it.
Yeah, but just have Billy Dee Williams talking, and then at the start he's playing Sabak, and he starts talking about an adventure, and you cut back to the past, and it's Donald Glover in that role. Maybe starts saying off a couple of Billy D's lines, then cuts to his own voice, and why can't they do series like that on Disney?
And that's the kind of thing that would be a terrible movie, but it would be a great episodic television series.
Exactly. The Tales of Lando Calrissian, Tales of Wedge Antilles. This is the sort of stuff Disney Plus should be putting on, not Andor, not the travesty that was Obi-Wan.
The Tales of Han Solo.
Yeah, but I mean, they've already.
I know they ruined that whole idea with the movie, so you can't get Harrison Ford back. But imagine a Han Solo story with Han and Chewie talking about their whole adventure. You know what? Work that into the Lando story.
Yeah, you could even have if you're doing the Tales of Lando, at some point he talks about interacting with Han. Like maybe at one point he won the Millennium Falcon back, and for that episode he had the Millennium Falcon, then Han wins it back from him, and he's like, son of it, you cheated and did not cheat, and that sort of stuff. So he keeps winning and losing the Millennium Falcon, and he wins the Millennium Falcon, updates it, improves it, and then hand wins it back. He's like, I spent all those credits fixing it up. That could be a running gag through that whole series. This is the sort of stuff. So when I saw the cancellation of Rogue Squadron, I was like, Rogue Squadron would work well as a series, but would work better as the Tales of Wedge Antilles. But yeah, I thought Jenkins would have done. I was actually looking forward to Rogue Squadron because a lot of the fan films these days, there's a couple out there that are really, really well done dogfights of like X-wings and TIEs, and it's just like, and they're doing it on the cheap with like Blender and a couple other software. It's feasible. They wouldn't have to blow the bank to do it, but oh well. Thanks, Disney. Thanks.
I don't think Disney knows what to do with Star Wars or Marvel.
Well, part of it is Kathleen Kennedy's on her way out. If the rumors are to be believed, when Indiana Jones is finally finished, that's her swan song. She's done, and Favreau's supposed to take over, but who knows at this point? So, yeah, we'll see. But I was a little peeved when that announcement came out, and that was like Thursday. That came out. They announced on Thursday that it was dead, and it was just like, fuck. Yeah, I haven't dropped enough F-bombs this episode. Gavin, you're sorely missed. I can only say that word so many times that it just eventually just loses all meaning. So,
Frigid fracker.
Yeah.
F-bomb.
Hop, sock, and motherforker. That's about as good as I can get.
I'll turn this into the good place.
Yeah, it's just enough is enough. I've had it with these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane. Because those monkey fighting snakes, they're the best. So yeah, that pretty much rounds out all I had to talk about this week. So if you've really been irritated by the sound of my voice, I can shut up now.
Hey, I stayed awake for it.
He did. I have proof. That, or he's really good at drawing eyeballs on like on his eyelids, and he has his.
I've actually hired someone to rotoscope me this whole second half of the podcast.
It's a deep fake. It's just a mannequin. They just
keep some. Keep alive.
Yeah, your kids are just wiggling the mannequin back and forth every once in a while. It's deep faking. Yeah, but at some point it'll happen. Yeah. So this has been episode 53. You got anything to add, Mike?
Yeah, Troy, we missed you. Gavin, we missed you. Maybe we'll get the quartet back together again.
Yes, I'd love to finish off this top 10. Really would. It'd be so nice because there's other lists that we have that are in preparation that we haven't. I don't feel we should launch those until we finish this one first.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that need to be held off until we finish other things.
Yeah, I'd like to get some stuff wrapped up first.
Yeah.
So, other than that, I think this is the end of episode 53 for those who are listening.
Yeah, he's the DJ. I'm the rapper.
I have some presents you can wrap. Some nice wrapping paper, some nice ribbon. It'd be great. That's every time someone says they're a rapper, I'm like, so what brand of tape do you use? Do you like the French corners or do you prefer the? How do you wrap an irregular sized object?
With a lot of talent, man.
I gift bags. Throw that shit in gift bags because I can't wrap that stuff. Anyway,
on that note, collective goodbye.
Sure. 1, 2, 3.
Collective goodbye. We did better without you, Troy and Gavin.
Yeah. All right. Good night, folks.
Good night.
Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
This has been Geeking Off the Page, a Planet Geek production. Please be sure to subscribe, share, rate, and review. You can find us at our social medias through Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Search for Planet Geek Productions. On Instagram and Twitter, Planet Geek Pod. Or you can send us an email at planetgeekpod@gmail.com. So until next bad time, same spider channel, may the force be with you, and thanks for tuning in.